Guten Tag, everyone. Greetings from Berlin, the former home of perhaps the Cold War's most famous divide between the East and the West. I've been here in Berlin for about a month, and I'm liking it so far. It's nice. I don't know how much longer I'll be here, but for the time being I am here, and it's nice. I certainly could have picked worse places to be. I have a lot of things that I want to talk about in this video, so I apologize if I seem to be skipping around a bit. I already have a feeling this is going to be a very long video because, as some of you have probably noticed, I tend to get pretty long-winded when I get onto a subject, so this is going to be, I guess, another fairly long one of these vlog-type videos. And again, I apologize in advance because I already anticipate I'm going to be talking for probably close to an hour. I'll try to be a bit faster than that, but we'll see what happens. I'm wearing a shirt which was gifted to me by my Russian comrades just before I left the motherland. And I don't know if you can read it, I don't know how well the text will show up on the video, but the text on the shirt says, "I live in Russia," which unfortunately I don't anymore, but I did. "I wear the fufaika," which I believe are some kind of warm leggings that Russians wear for warmth in the cold weather. "I wear the fufaika, Volonyks, and the shapka ushanka with the red star." I'm not sure I don't know what Volonyks are. I think it's some other type of article of clothing. The shapka ushanka is that classic Russian hat, that sort of round Russian hat with the ear flaps on it. "I drink vodka right from the samovar, and my riding bear plays on the balalaika." Obviously none of which is exactly true, but it made a nice shirt. It was nice of my Russian comrades to give me such a nice going away gift. Anyhow, so I guess the first thing that I wanted to bring up is this. This is a print copy of a book that I wrote a while ago. Some of you may remember, those of you who were keeping up to date on my other YouTube channel, the one that I was mostly using for making Let's Plays. A while ago, a couple of years ago, I wrote a book called Islands in the Fog. And one of my loyal viewers, who has been following me and my work online for some years now, took it upon himself to actually make a print copy. And he made it very nice. He originally sent this to me almost a year ago, but unfortunately it got lost in the Russian postal system, because the Russians claim that the address that it was sent to doesn't exist in Russia, which is probably quite patently horseshit, pardon my French, because the address did in fact exist, but whatever. I had assumed that it was stolen because the Russian postal system is notorious for stealing things. It's actually very, very difficult to mail things in Russia because they tend to get stolen out of the mail a lot. But no, it was returned. After almost a year, it was returned to my friend, and now that I'm in Berlin, he went ahead and mailed it to me here, and I got it in less than a week. So here it is now, and I just want to give thanks and sort of express my gratitude to my friend for the very nice print job that he made out of it. It's, it's not a particularly lengthy book. It's only, let's see, this printing is it's 140 pages, and that's including the author's afterword. The last page of the actual story is page 136, so about 140 pages basically. So it's not a particularly long book, but it was a book that, kind of an experimental novel that I wrote, just a short novella, if you will. And he really did a nice job. Even the selection of the I don't know how well it'll show up on the video. It looks like it's showing up fairly well. But you can see the cover picture. It's basically these sort of, I don't know if they're not exactly buoys. They're kind of posts or something that are in the ground, rising above some water surface. And the image is very lonely and very stark, and it kind of brings out the spirit of what I intended with the title. If you haven't read the book, my title, Islands in the Fog, basically refers to people. The people are islands. It sort of refers to the cliche that no man is an island. But the book sort of speaks to the incredible loneliness and isolation that is imposed on us by our modern society. And the idea is that people are islands, and not only are they islands, but they're islands in a sea of fog because they can barely see each other. Even though the islands are in proximity to each other, they don't really see each other. And that's really what was intended by the title. And so it's a book about loneliness and isolation and sadness, and I think that's actually carried out in the choice of cover picture very well. So everything from the cover picture to the formatting. I mean, the book was very nicely printed. The paragraphs were nicely made. It's done in a nice font, which looks like it might be, I don't know, it's Times New Roman or what, but some serif font like that. The chapters are very nicely laid out. Everything is really very gorgeously done. And my friend sent this book to me because he thought that it might inspire me to have a physical copy of my work, even though I am not commercially published. And obviously the ideas of writing exist in a sort of more ethereal plane of ideology that's not necessarily physical in nature. My friend thought that it would be somewhat inspirational to have a physical copy of what I'd written in my hands. And it is. I mean, I really, I do not appreciate this. I don't know if I've spoken about this on my vlogs before, but I really do not appreciate this sort of modern or even postmodern idea that books are becoming a thing of the past. People say that in 10 or 20 years from now, the word book will come to connote not a paper-bound physical object like this, but book will come to mean a more sort of logical construct, if you will, like a website or something like that. It won't be a physical thing that you won't think of a physical thing when somebody talks about books. You'll think about a book as being just like a PDF file or some other format of file. And that may well happen. I mean, who knows? We don't know what the future holds. Maybe that'll end up being the case. But quite frankly, I don't really appreciate that idea. I don't welcome that idea in our society. I think that it is important for us to have physical things. And, maybe not too many. I understand that it's not practical for a lot of people to have huge libraries with thousands of books because they take up a lot of space. Books, if you're a heavy reader, books take up a lot of space, which if you live in a small living space may be room that you don't have. And I understand that, I realize that. And I think most people, what they do is they kind of buy and sell books. You can go to a used bookstore, buy a few books for a few bucks, and then read them and then give them away or sell them back. You don't have to keep thousands of books. But yeah, there's a place for ebooks, certainly. I understand the convenience and the space saving and the greener aspects because you don't use a paper, the greener aspects of ebooks, and that's important as well. But there is also a certain importance to, the whole bibliophile aspect, the feel of the book in your hands as you're turning the pages, even, the smell of the ink and of the pages and the appearance of the binding and everything. It's all of these really come together to make a book. A book is not just a collection of ideas. It's more than just bits and bytes. And this is a pretty common idea. I think a lot of other bibliophiles have said something to this effect, but I don't know. I try to strike a balance. I understand, like I said, I understand that ebooks have a place, but I don't welcome the wholesale abolition of paper books from our society. So, anyway, sorry for my two-faced sort of lighting here. I'm sitting in my kitchen of my small apartment that I have here in Berlin, and obviously the window's over there, and it's one of those apartments that only has windows on one side, so it's kind of difficult to get light on the other side. There is no light in the ceiling in this kitchen. I guess I could get a table lamp or something and put it on the counter, but for now, I apologize. I guess the lighting for this video is rather poor, but I hope that my ideas will not be less pertinent for the poor lighting of the video. Sorry also for my hair. I think my hair is kind of sticking up. I got my hair cut shortly after I arrived in Berlin, but I think they cut it a bit short, and my hair tends to be kind of wiry, so I guess it's not really important though. Anyhow, so again, I'm very thankful. I want to express that I'm very grateful to my friend for doing me this very nice favor of having my work printed and sent to me. Thank you very much, my friend. Muchas gracias, amigo. And it looks nice. I mean, it looks very nice. It's looking at it now, I can kind of think of a few things that maybe I could have done better in terms of the writing, because when you see something like this, you sort of think, well, it looks so nice now. I should have written a little bit more carefully. I can see how this passage could have been punched up a little bit. Or, there are even some typos. I mean, there are some spelling errors which I didn't catch, which I'm a little bit ashamed of. But all in all, you reach a point where a work is basically done. I recently played Katawa Shoujo, which is it's kind of a computer game. Some people insist it's not a computer game, it's just a visual novel. Call it what you like, but it's sort of a, not exactly hentai, although it has some erotic scenes in it, but it's basically an anime manga game or whatever you want to call it. Basically one of these dating simulator type of games. And it's gotten a lot of attention because of its premise. I'm not going to get into that now. I mean, this isn't a review of that game, but basically I played it and I really liked it. And I remember reading a bit about it, and one of the writers for the game, in some kind of interview or something, was asked if there was anything that he would change about what they had done with the game. And he said, yeah, sure, if you look at anything, you can always think of ways that maybe this passage could have been written a little better. I could have cleaned that up a bit, maybe made that clearer. This conversation could have been made more interesting or whatever. But at some point in time, you just have to say, look, it's done, we're finished, there's no point in nitpicking on it anymore, let's just release it. And I think that's true. I mean, I could have done a little bit better with my writing here, but I think overall the book turned out pretty well. I think my writing was decent, and in print, I think it looks very nice. So this is nice. Anyhow, so again, thank you very much for the nice book. And speaking of Katawa Shoujo, I did play it recently. I'm not going to talk too much about the game itself, but I want to talk a little bit about my reactions to it, which some people might not expect. Again, I'll say it's kind of a dating simulator. It's one of these sort of romantic story kind of games in which you basically just do a lot of reading and occasionally choose from a few multiple choice options. And yes, there are sex scenes in the game, so some people have called it just like a hentai game, even though I think it's more than that. I mean, it's a serious story which happens to have sex scenes in it. And most of the game is pretty good. The writing is very good. I think the writing is above, it's certainly a level above what you get from most hentai games. And it is amateurish in some spots because it is an amateur-made game. I mean, it's a free game, which was made by some friends who met up on 4chan. So it's some people have dismissed it as not a serious game, and in some ways, I mean, yeah, it's not. It's not Call of Duty or something like that. But I don't even know what games are popular now. I play mostly just indie, underground, indie-made games. I don't even know what games are popular right now. I guess what's popular besides Call of Duty? Skyrim. Okay, it's not Skyrim, but it's. I think it's pretty good. The premise of the game is there are 5 women you can date, and they all have, of course, they have different personalities, different characteristics. Everybody tends to have their favorite. As tends to happen in these types of games, people usually play all the different stories and, eventually end up dating all the different women in the game. And they usually have their favorite, who becomes their waifu, so to speak, their virtual wife, their favorite girl or favorite woman in the game. And I did the same. I mean, my favorite is Rin Tezuka, the painter. She is the sort of artist kind of person, and I think that anybody who knows me will immediately be able to figure out why I liked her the best. If you've played the game, if you've seen the game and gone through it, then I think it'll probably be pretty apparent why I liked her the best. Because it's not because she's a painter, although I appreciate that kind of artistic tendency, but she is just completely. There are different ways of describing her. A lot of people just say she's really weird. A lot of people say that she's philosophical, or maybe pseudo-philosophical, or what, I don't know. But she's very thoughtful, and that's really what I liked about her. She is not a very happy person. She's very sort of neutral, very seemingly apathetic, but she's not really apathetic. But what really struck me about her story and about her particular story arc within the game is that she doesn't have a lot of friends. And so there are a lot of people like me who really identify with Rin in that game, and who, like me, have her as their favorite because they sort of identify with her. I mean, they're also sort of outcast, nerdy people like myself who don't go out a lot, don't really have close friends, or things like that. And the reason why I bring all this up is because it ultimately struck me, and I think what I learned from playing that game was that sort of story. I mean, the love story between the player character and Rin obviously goes on for a while, and it's kind of emotional. Actually, it's very it's more emotional than I think a lot of people anticipated. It's by far the most I'm trying to think if there's another word to use besides emotional, but I'll just say it's probably the most emotional story in the game. And I personally broke down crying a few times while playing it, which is not exactly like me, quite frankly. But anyway, it struck me in that particular storyline was that's kind of what I like. I mean, that sort of relationship that the player character has with Rin is the kind of, in an idealized sense, perhaps it's the sort of relationship that myself and probably a lot of people are looking for, because it's really just a relationship between the two of them. And this kind of flies in the face of a lot of conventional wisdom. Again, if you haven't played the game, you don't know, but basically the way that it unfolds is if you end up dating Rin, you also don't have a lot of friends in the game. You also tend to avoid company of other people. The player character is sort of flexible. He kind of becomes a little bit like whichever woman he ends up dating in the game. And so if you end up dating Rin because she's sort of an outcast, sort of introverted, kind of isolated, then your character also sort of becomes that way, and he basically doesn't maintain contact with other people besides Rin, his kind of pseudo girlfriend. And conventional wisdom has said, and it's been my understanding for many years, that if you have a relationship, if you're married or, not necessarily married, but just dating somebody or romantically involved with someone, it's important to have friends outside the relationship. And I always sort of took that to heart because that's what almost everyone says. Everyone says, it's important to have lots of friends and not be too codependent with your partner. And I guess like I said, I took that advice just because it's what so many people say. And we sort of have a tendency to subconsciously assume that if everybody says something, it must be true. And I'm only starting now to realize, just within the past couple of months after playing Katawa Shoujo and going through Rin's route, that I think I'm really not like that. I mentioned in my video on leaving Russia that when I first went to Russia, I really liked the sense of community there. I very much liked how close-knit people were. And that's still very nice. I mean, don't get me wrong, I really love that about Russia. I love how generous and how friendly and how caring people are underneath their sort of gruff exteriors. But what I eventually came to realize about myself is that I'm not that kind of person. I'm not the kind of guy who likes to be in large groups of people. I'm not the kind of guy who necessarily wants to be part of a large community. What I did like about Russia, and I think what first appealed to me about Russia is I did want to have better relationships in my life. And I don't necessarily mean like romantic relationships, but just, relationships in a more general sense with other people. And what I was sort of missing in North America was that element of everyday life, because North America is... I'm stereotyping here a little bit, I know, but North America is more a place where business and commerce and money are of paramount importance to people. And that's kind of what I wrote about in the book. Again, Islands in the Fog. This is sort of a reaction. This book that I wrote is kind of an angry sort of polemic against not just consumerism. I mean, it's not just consumerism, which I understand is really more the consumption of cheap trash, like buying a lot of things to make yourself feel better. It's not just the love of material things, it's the love of business, it's the love of commerce that permeates almost everything in North America. And that to me is very sad. And so when I went to Russia at first, it wasn't like that. I mean, Russia's, also partly like that, but not as much. And so I liked that. But I eventually came to understand that what I really want for my life, at least, speaking for myself personally, and this is a very personal statement for me to make, but I'm making it publicly because I think that I feel like it's sort of important to declare this, because I think this is probably true for a lot of people, whether they realize it or not. I think for me, what I really want is a very small number of relationships in my life, but close ones. People talk about, these days I often think about Facebook with regard to this idea, and some people have hundreds of friends on Facebook, but those aren't really their friends because they don't communicate with them very much. They might not even talk, they might not even send them a Facebook message, or if they do, it's a couple of lines saying, hey, how's it going? To me, a real friend is something different from that. A real friend is somebody who you spend a lot of time with on a regular basis, and are intimate with. And again, I don't mean intimacy necessarily in a sexual or romantic sense, but at least, intimate in a more, more mundane, more general kind of sense. And it strikes me that this is something that's lacking in our society today. There's a great emphasis on being social, and I don't like the way that people use the word social. You're encouraged to be social and go out with people and, go to dinner with them and listen to music or go to music concerts or dance or whatever. And it strikes me that that's not being very social, because you don't really get close to people that way. You share a lot of small talk and maybe have some fun with them. But how much do you really know about them? At the end of the day, when you've gone home, what did you really learn about each other? You don't really share a lot of yourselves with each other when you're doing that kind of thing. And to me, I think that's what's really important to me. So what I seek and what I really want from my life is not necessarily just to meet new people or to meet a whole bunch of people. I mean, that's nice, but that's just kind of just for fun, so to speak. What I seek is greater intimacy with with a small number of people who are very important to me. And I'm sort of starting up a relationship now with a woman who I recently met. I guess you would say she's my girlfriend. I mean, yeah, she, for all intents and purposes, she is my girlfriend, and we're kind of like that. I mean, we mostly just talk to each other. We don't have. I think it's fair to say that we don't really have any friends. At least we don't have close friends outside of each other. And at some point in the past, I would have said, I would have worried a little bit and thought, well, isn't that unhealthy? I mean, shouldn't we have friends we talk to and go out with, and not just, be two people together? Isn't that kind of clingy, kind of needy, kind of codependent, and all that? But I'm realizing now I think that's what I always really wanted, and I just never admitted it to myself before. I never really admitted to myself that that's really what I want. I just want one close relationship with one person. And, I mean, there are other people who I talk to. It's not like I never talk to any other people in the whole world. But those people, the other people aren't really close friends of mine. They're just kind of acquaintances, and I don't go out with them. I don't do things with them. They just, occasionally I'll talk to them, send them an email, or, talk to them on the phone for a little while. But it's not really a big thing. And again, this is sort of something that I picked up on and kind of realized about myself after playing through Rin Tezuka's story in Katawa Shoujo, that's really what I wanted for myself, was just one close relationship with one person. And you can say that I'm needy or clingy or whatever you want to call it, but I honestly don't feel that that's too unhealthy, because that's what I've always wanted. I think that's what I've always wanted for myself, is to have better connections with people. Not more connections, not to know a whole bunch of people and have hundreds of friends, but to have good connections with just a few people, or maybe even one person. I talked to a woman here recently, who's also here in Berlin, perhaps temporarily, and she was telling me something about how at one point in time she was, I guess, riding the subway here in Berlin, and she saw some guy standing next to her who was wearing a jacket that had some sort of interesting texture. Like, I guess the fabric looked interesting to her, and so she just kind of reached out and started feeling his jacket just to see what the texture of the fabric was like. And I should mention that this woman's not German. She's not originally from Germany. She's originally from China. So she's a Chinese woman who's just temporarily staying here in Berlin. And I guess this kind of thing is more common in China. I guess that kind of thing is not seen as unusual. It seems, I guess it's seen as a normal thing to do in China. But, those of you who live in most Western societies probably perceive that a stranger reaching out on the subway and suddenly rubbing your jacket is seen, would be seen as a personal space violation. And indeed it was. And she was sort of expressing this idea and saying, I think she said something like, "What kind of society are we living in?" was the way she put it. She didn't understand, why can't I, if somebody's standing right next to me, why can't I just reach out, and if his jacket looks interesting, just kind of feel his jacket? What kind of society are we living in when people can't even touch each other that way, just in a casual fashion? And I kind of thought about it, and I thought, there's a certain truth to that. I mean, what's the harm? Really, what's wrong with that? What are we coming to when we cannot connect with people that way? When it's considered like almost like rape to just to touch someone. But there's obviously, a contrasting view. I've talked to some other people. I spoke recently with a woman, an American woman who I know, about this very subject actually, and she said she hates it when people touch her. Sometimes strangers will touch her, and it's deliberate and it's not. I mean, it's not sexual or suggestive or anything. It might be just like a friendly pat on the shoulder or something like that. But she says she hates it. It makes her feel really uncomfortable, and she really wishes that people wouldn't do that. So I understand that if you've been taught that you shouldn't do that, if you've been taught that people just don't touch each other that way, then you sort of have this idea in your mind that it's inappropriate, that it's offensive, that it's a violation of the personal space or personal comfort or whatever of another person, and I frankly don't like that. I mean, I understand, if it makes somebody uncomfortable, of course, I don't want to do anything that would make a person uncomfortable. I don't want people to feel uncomfortable. I do want people to feel good about themselves and to feel comfortable with their life situations. But I worry that we've lost something as a society when we live in this kind of place where, where we're just touching someone casually is seen as something offensive and something that we must suppress. I used to know a guy when I lived in California. There was a Vietnamese guy I knew there, and he was like actually from Vietnam. And he had a strange habit when we would greet each other. I don't know if he did this with other people, but he did it with me. He had a strange habit of patting me on my elbows. And, I mean, why not? It's, sometimes when you meet somebody, I guess you pat them on the arm or something. He would go for the elbows, and he would sometimes do it on both sides, like, oh, hey, how's it going? He would, do that. And it struck me as a little bizarre at first, but I realized that, okay, that's just how he greets people, maybe. And I don't know if that's common in Vietnam. I don't think it is, but he was a very good-natured guy, a very friendly guy, and to him it didn't seem strange at all. He didn't see anything wrong with it. It was his way of expressing affection and, friendliness towards people, so why not? And I got used to it, and it would, I saw nothing wrong with it. But some people would probably feel very uncomfortable with that and say, what are you doing to me? Like, get your hands off me. What kind of creep are you? So this is really this is where we are. I mean, this is the world we live in today, and I frankly, I'm not very comfortable with that idea. I am not comfortable with the idea that we can't touch each other. I'm not comfortable with the idea that if I just try to get close to somebody in that way, that it'll be seen as somehow offensive. And it's funny because we're a very sexual society, and I say we as if I'm speaking to just one society. I mean, I consider myself American, even though I wasn't born in the United States, but I consider myself probably more American than anything else in terms of my mindset and cultural ideology. So I'm speaking to Americans, of course, but I'm also speaking to Europeans. I mean, I'm in Germany right now, so I'm speaking to Germans as well. I'm speaking, I guess you could say, to most of so-called Western culture. I worry about what happens to us when we become like that. I don't want to live in that kind of world. I don't want to live in a society where people are too scared of each other. And yet, like I said, we're a very sexual culture. We value. We really like. Pornography is very popular, obviously, in Western society, and people have that desire for that sort of sexual closeness to someone. Actually, here in Germany, prostitution is a legal business, and so prostitutes do it openly. There are some streets in Berlin where you walk down them at night, and prostitutes just openly walk up to you and start talking to you, and they don't have to worry about being arrested for it because it's perfectly legal. So Sex is a normal part of life, obviously, and it's something that's popular to a certain extent in our society. And yet, it's kind of like it's okay to have sex. It's okay to have casual sex with people, but real intimacy, like real emotional or other types of intimacy, is that's kind of to be avoided. No, that's too personal. No, we can have sex, but I'm not going to talk to you about my feelings. No, that's just kind of weird. And no, you shouldn't touch me unless we know each other. Because you touch me. That's just no, that's not acceptable. I'm not comfortable with that idea. I don't want it to be that way. I don't want to live in a society where those are our social norms. So I don't know what to make of that, but in any case, yeah. So I don't have a lot of friends, and I'm okay with that. I don't think that makes me a loser. I don't think that makes me a failure as a human being in any capacity. I don't think that I don't think that it detracts from me or my life in any way. And if I have just one primary relationship with this one girlfriend of mine, and if she's the person who I spend most of my time with and talk to most of the time, and I don't talk to other people a lot, I don't think that that's unhealthy. I don't think that that's a I don't think that that speaks to any kind of social or psychological illness that we may suffer from. I think I'm actually pretty happy with that arrangement, as long as obviously it's a relationship involving mutual respect and care and affection and so on. So that's where we are, and that's what's been on my mind lately. The nature of society and of intimacy between people, and what that really means for us as a culture when it's okay to be with people, and in fact we emphasize being with people and in proximity to people, like you can go dancing with them or go out to see a movie with them, but you can't share things with them. You can't share personal thoughts or ideas or hopes or dreams or feelings with people, because that's just too personal. That's just uncomfortable. No, you can't do that with people. Anyway, so how's Berlin? Some of you are probably wondering what Berlin is like. Like I said, I'm probably not going to make any travel videos of me walking around, because you can find lots of information on Berlin online. I'm not going to I think do too much filming of the city. There are some cool things in Berlin for sure. One place I haven't gone to yet, but which I definitely want to go to, is the Computer Game Museum. The apparently it's the only one of its kind in the world. The Computer Game Museum is here in Berlin, and apparently recently opened. In German, it's called the Computerspiel Museum, because Spiel is German for game, so Computerspiel Museum. But I'm assuming it probably has lots of English-speaking tourists who visit it, and there will probably be material there in English, even though some of it will probably be in German. I don't speak German, but you can guess, obviously a lot of German words are very close to their English counterparts, and so a lot of the words you can guess. Berlin is nice. The weather is not too bad. It's actually raining a little bit right now, but not too badly. It actually snowed just a couple of days ago. Today's April 11th, I think, and it just it snowed a few days ago in early April, which is, I think, kind of unusual, but for the most part it's been above freezing. In fact, it's been pretty warm. Yesterday I think it was 10 degrees or something like that. 10 degrees Celsius, which is probably about 50 or so Fahrenheit. So, the weather here is not too bad. I mean, sometimes it gets cold in winter, and Sometimes it'll get maybe a little bit too warm in summer, but oh well, too bad. The culture is obviously very nice. Just like in Russia, there are lots of museums, there are lots of statues and monuments, there are lots of very nice parks. The public transit system is very good, in my opinion. The food is obviously very good. I mean, you can get lots of very, very good food here. The economy is kind of poor, but it's not as bad as a lot of other European countries. I mean, the economy here in Germany is certainly better than in obviously Greece or Italy or Spain or probably also better than in France, which is actually most of the major European countries. So the economy in Germany is not too bad. I mean, it's better than in most major European countries. It's not as good as most of the Nordic countries like Finland or Sweden, but it's okay. And people are nice. People here in Germany are pretty nice. They don't speak a lot of English. It's kind of weird. You hear a lot. I was always told that most people in Germany speak English, and if you go to Germany, oh yeah, people will speak English. But I'm still finding here that a lot of people don't speak English or speak halting English at best. I think statistically, something like about half of all German people can communicate in English, like can hold a conversation in English, but for a lot of them, it's just like very basic communication. I mean, you can ask them where's the bathroom, and they can say, go that way and turn right or something like that. You can have very basic conversations with them, but there aren't a lot of people who have real English proficiency, which is neither here nor there, I guess. I mean, if I'm going to be here in Germany long term, obviously it's my responsibility to learn the local language. I should be expected to learn German if I intend to remain here for an appreciable length of time. But I don't know if I will. Maybe I'll go back to the United States. I mean, really, I've done a lot of traveling, obviously. If you folks have been keeping up with my videos, you know that I've been traveling a lot recently over the past year or so, and ultimately, I kind of have to ask myself, what was I looking for? I mean, what was I really hoping for? Was I really hoping to find there's a movie that came out, I think, just last year in 2011 called Midnight in Paris. It's a Woody Allen movie, which, I don't know, some people like Woody Allen, some don't. It's a pretty good movie, in my opinion. I watched it. It's basically about a guy who goes to Paris and is sort of magically whisked back in time and meets all these famous people all these famous people who went to Paris in the 1920s. He meets F. Scott Fitzgerald and his wife. He meets Ernest Hemingway, of course, Salvador Dali, all those people. It's sort of a magical realism sort of story of a guy who goes back in time and gets caught up in Paris at the height of the lost generation culture there. But that's just a story. That's just a fictional story. Obviously, that doesn't happen in real life. And so, in real life, was I really expecting to come here to Europe and find this grand culture of artists and writers and philosophers who, have this awesome like underground culture and just spend all day talking about painting and poetry and sculpture in smoky cafes. It's obviously a pretty romantic idea, and obviously contemporary reality is not that fantasy sort of doesn't have a lot with the actual reality of being in Europe today. I mean, there are a lot of coffee shops here, yes, but they're just basically places. They're pretty much just like coffee. Either just like Starbucks in the U.S. They're places for students to go and get coffee while studying a university paper, or for hippies to go and just hang out. I mean, you don't really have a lot of this whole intellectual, artistic sort of thing going on. There is that element. I mean, there is some element of art. I mean, yeah, there are artists here in Europe. But it's a very loose scene. It's a very small scene. It's not significant. It's not like it's not like it was back then. I mean, Europe has become a lot more commercial as well, and these old fashioned sort of ideas relating to art and culture have sort of been subsumed by the love of business and commerce, just like in North America. So I don't know. I'm glad that I did that traveling. I'm glad that I've seen a few different cities in Europe, and Europe's a beautiful place, and there's a beautiful history here, and it's all very well and good to go to these museums and look at things that happened in the past. But I also want to look at the present, and when I do that, I realize that there's not really that much going on here in Europe today as compared to anywhere else. I mean, you can find artists in New York or San Francisco. You can find, you know, you can find that anywhere. You can go to anywhere in the world and you'll find people doing that kind of thing. So it's not like there's any special sort of kind of secret club or something like that happening here in Europe. People think of it as a magical place full of art and history, and yeah, I mean it is full of history, but that's history. It's things that did happen at one point in time. It's not necessarily something that's still going on today. So I don't know. Obviously, if I stay here, I would need to learn the local language unless I move to the UK, which I may do, but it's very expensive to live in the UK. So I'm not a rich guy. I don't know if I really want to put down the cash that would be required to live and work in the UK. I mean, why should I when I can just go to the US and probably, at least economically, have more opportunities there. And in terms of all this art stuff, all this kind of culture stuff, you can get that anywhere. I mean, if you want to go to a museum, that's fine. If you want to travel, that's fine. It's wonderful to travel sometimes, but at some point in time, you have to realize that you need a place to call home. You need a place to return to, that you feel like you belong in. And I think a lot of people do that. A lot of people do this whole sort of grand adventure where they go to Europe for a while and eventually find that it's nice. It's certainly a nice place, but that they might just be better off going back home. So Prague was like that. About 20 years ago, Prague in the Czech Republic, which is not far from here, and where I also have not been, but which I'd like to visit. I hopefully will. Anyway, Prague was a very popular destination for American expats about 20 years ago because of the whole communist revolution, or rather the ending of communist revolution, where they were transitioning to a democracy and so on. And Americans kind of jumped on that opportunity and thought it would be cool to see history in the making, so to speak. And so they went to Prague and sort of formed a little scene of American expatriates there. And there are still some there. I mean, you can find American expatriates all over the world. I think there are even some in North Korea. So, there are some, but they're not that common. They're not a significant cultural element. They're just a small little group. So, Prague had its moment. It sort of was a popular tourist destination, but I think most of the Americans who went there eventually decided to return to the United States. And perhaps I'll be one of those people. And if I go back, I'll be a little bit disappointed in myself because I wanted to do something great. I wanted to do something grand with my big adventure and big journey. But I guess that's what everyone dreams of, and for how many people, it doesn't. How many people does that really come true for? I mean, did I come here and think I was going to be the next Mozart, or that I was going to, make some kind of independent movie, that I was going to be the next, make the next Godfather movie, or something like that. It's nice to dream. It's certainly not a bad thing to have dreams and fantasies, but at some point in time you have to face reality and realize what's actually happening and what's actually likely to happen versus what you think is going to happen. And really, like a lot of people, I think I came here to Europe just with this idea that something magical would happen, and maybe something did. I mean, I would say that the experience has been very enlightening for me, very eye opening, very important. I think that being here in Europe for a while has shaped me in many important ways. But again, life goes on, and you can't. Well, I guess you can. I was going to say you can't just really keep traveling forever. You can't just travel for all your life and not settle down anywhere. But I guess you can. Some people do that. Um, but I don't think I want to be one of those people because, again, quite frankly, I don't really like traveling that much. I like seeing new places. That's all well and good. I just hate the inconvenience and expense because it is expensive to travel, and I hate the inconvenience of always having to pack everything. Find a hotel. If you're crossing international lines, then you may need to deal with customs and border guard officials, and I don't. That's annoying if you have to get visas to foreign countries or things like that. Get your paperwork taken care of, and then you have to worry about not knowing the language and finding places to get food and everything. It's just terribly inconvenient. Um, yeah, I'm one of those people who doesn't really like to travel very much, quite honestly. So. So I guess certainly still have the option of moving to somewhere in the U.S., maybe somewhere where it's cheap to live. I don't know if I'd go back to California. If I went back, I don't know that I'd go back to California because even though California is a beautiful place as well, it too is very expensive because everybody else wants to live there. So I can just be another random guy who goes and lives in the South or the Midwest or something and just gets a cheap apartment or even a cheap house because, houses are still not too expensive there. And just make a living there just like any other middle class white guy doing some random job. That's certainly that's certainly an option. And I guess it's not the only option, but I guess it's not too shameful. I mean, it's not something to be ashamed of to be just a regular middle class guy doing some random job. Everybody's got to make a living, right? Anyhow, I guess that's all that I had to say for now. I hope that you folks are all doing well, and that life is treating you well, and that I would encourage people, at least from my perspective, in terms of my personal values, I would encourage people to build better relationships with other people, not just make new friends in the sense of acquaintances, not just meeting new people, but actually like developing good, intimate friendships with people who you can share things with, people who you can share your feelings with, and your hopes and your dreams, and at least for me, I think that's a lot more fulfilling than than having lots and lots of friends and going out and having a great time with them. That's not really my kind of thing. That's not really something that's very satisfying to me personally. And if it's satisfying to you, if that's what you're looking for, then okay, great. Everybody has their own preferences, and maybe that's something that works well for you. And if it does, far be it from me to tell you how to live your life. I certainly shouldn't be someone to tell you that there's anything wrong with that. But if you feel like there is something missing from your life, if you're like me and are not really a party person or a go out and have fun kind of person, I think that there is nothing shameful in having just a very small number of friends or even just one person who you can be close with, because sharing life and being intimate with just one person is okay. Is not it is not something to be ashamed of. All right, everyone. Take care of yourselves, folks. And once again, greetings from Berlin, and hopefully I will talk to you folks later. Bye for now.